Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how PETA rewrote Genesis using artificial intelligence. Okay, and instead of clothing Adam and Eve in animal skins, they have them clothed in hemp. Okay, and they made all these changes that are animal friendly, and there's nothing wrong with that. We should be good to animals, right? And I don't need PETA to tell me how to do it. The Torah is good enough. Every spiritual vitamin and mineral that you need to get through your day is in the Torah. People might be surprised to know that there was no meat eaters until they got off the ark in chapter 9 of Genesis. And that's why they had to bring uh, two pairs of these kind of animals and seven pairs of these kind of animals. It's not a contradiction. They were going to have a barbecue when they got off the ark. And you can't grill it until you kill it. And see, that's part of the problem with like Sodom and Gomorrah. They were completely unjust. They weren't good to animals. I'm sure they were. If they needed a hamburger, they would just go cut a chunk out of the cow and then tie it off so the cow didn't bleed to death. Because if you killed the whole cow, then it would go bad, right? So God makes these laws, these kindnesses to animals, several times in the Torah. And the New Testament comes along and changes all that. We'll look at that in a minute. But yeah, everything that lives and moves will be food for you. It'll give you the green plants. Now I give you all things. But you must not eat meat with the lifeblood still in it. And we see these specific commandments in Deuteronomy chapter 12 as well. It says you may slaughter your animals in any of your towns. Eat as much of the meat as you want, according to the blessings the Lord your God gives you. Some of them change the word blessing to command, but both of them, basically what this is telling us is, look, the way that I've shown you to slaughter the animals. The oral Torah, that's where that comes in. Because there is no specific instructions on how to slaughter the animal in the Torah. Okay? And it says right there, Deuteronomy 12:21, you may slaughter any of the herd of the flock he has given you as I have commanded you, according to the blessings. See right there. Now, here's another passage that's very important, and it's actually quoted a couple times in the letters in the New Testament. Deuteronomy 25, verse 4, do not muzzle an ox while it's treading out the grain. Okay? The animals like to eat while they're doing their work. And that's a kindness that God gives to animals. And what does the New Testament do? Well, it takes it away. It turns it into something different. It's in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 17. Talks about elders who are worthy of honor. For the scripture says, do not muzzle an ox while it's treading out the grain. And the worker is worthy of his wages. So they're just kind of taking these little one-liners and trying to fluff up their nonsense here in the New Testament. And in 1 Corinthians, it says, Paul says, do not muzzle an ox while it's treading out the grain. Is it about the oxen that God is concerned? Okay. He wants to take one of the few things that God gives, to instructions about how to treat animals and turn it into something else. But anyway, the topic for this is, why is it so important that they're clothed in animal skins? Well, first of all, let's go back to the Hebrew Bible and look at the Hebrew words here that we have. And this is very interesting. At the very end of chapter 2, Adam and Eve are naked, and they're fine with that. Just like the animals. They don't care if they're naked. Okay? And they don't have a relationship with God the way they're going to. As soon as they eat the fruit off the tree, he said not to. Okay? They couldn't be disobeying God because they didn't even know what that meant then. And then once they found out what good and evil is, or right and wrong, they're like, oh, now we get it. And that's the spark. That's the difference between us and the animals. Is we have free will because we have the ability to choose between right and wrong. Okay, unlike the animals and unlike the angels. They're naked and they're unashamed. And what happens when you turn the page? Genesis chapter 3, how does it start? Talks about the serpent being the most craftiest of all the animals. Now let's look at the Hebrew words there. The word for naked, arom, and the word for crafty is arum. Okay, they're the same root word here. They're only separated by the vowel pronunciation. So why does he clothe them in animal skins? He could have clothed them in polyester and cotton if he wanted to. What's he trying to convey here? What is the word for skins? It's or. Okay? And now here's where it gets real interesting. What is the word for light? The word for light is also or. It's spelled differently, one letter different. Okay, but we see the word light several times in the first chapter of Genesis when God creates the universe and the earth and everything. And then we learn later on in the book of Isaiah, what is the purpose of the Jews? They are to be a light to the nations. Okay, that is their purpose. So when God's clothing them in animal skin, it's his way of saying, look, this is what you were. These animal skins are there to remind you where you came from and what you were. And now we're moving forward. Okay?